You know, I was always petrified to give speeches. When I was in school, I was asked to give a Thanksgiving speech, basically, saying the vote of thanks at the end of an amazing function. I was chosen for it. I went up on stage, started pretty well. I sort of was able to invoke everybody who was present there. But there was this particular word, privilege. And me and my principal, we actually had a difference of opinion on how I should be pronouncing that word. That was on my mind the whole time. Even if I was talking about something, it's still okay. When I get to privilege, how will I say it? How will I say it? And when I did get to privilege, I pronounced it wrong. So that's what happened there. When I think of it now, it is funny. But when you actually froze in front of an audience of like 500 plus people, it certainly wasn't funny at that time. So then I decided, okay, no matter what, I'm not going to be remembering things like crazy and sort of getting myself bugged up over, okay, how am I going to remember to say something the way I want it to be said? So I decided to start using the location to prepare my speeches. Now, what do I mean by locations? Usually, you give your speeches on a stage, on a raised platform, or maybe even the front of a room where everybody is assembled, right? In order to beat the memorization part, which many of us do, and we still think, oh, you know what, I shouldn't forget point A, B, C. You use your cards, cue cards to do it. You'd use a teleprompter, you would use your own presentation to sort of help you with the main points. But what if I told you there's an even simpler method to do it? And this is going to be pretty useful when you're not going to be having aids such as your presentation. You're just called upon to give an impromptu speech, right? Maybe you do have a presentation, but there's somebody else who's controlling it. Maybe it's a team member of mine or your secretary who's actually controlling this thing, and you need to tell your secretary, okay, you know what, move to the next slide and things like that. So you do not have the luxury of maybe like glancing back and saying, oh, okay, this is the point I got to do. You just need to flow. So for that, I started using locations. So mentally, I would visualize the stage and I would sort of earmark 4, 5, 6 locations depending on the whatever the main points that I want to cover as part of my speech. For example, if I'm talking about blockchain, maybe I would like to start with giving an introduction about blockchain. Then I'll rather get into, okay, what makes it so awesome, what makes it so secure. Then I'll maybe get into some areas where digital transformation is being assisted by blockchain, and then sort of give some real life cases on how blockchain has been a game changer for many industries, and then finally come over, take questions, summarize it for everybody. So this would essentially be 4 or 5 locations on the stage. So the first location for me would essentially be the introduction, and this is actual physical location that I'm talking about. So I stand there, all I talk about is the introduction, right? When I know it's time to move on to the next point, the major point that I need to introduce, I gently shift myself to the next place. Moving also demonstrates confidence. You're not hiding behind the lectern or the speaker's desk. Instead, you are moving around, and at every point, you have this opportunity to sort of make eye contact with a different section of the audience, which makes them feel, you know what, this guy is confident. He's looking at us while he's delivering the speech. There's no murmuring, there is no fudging about. Just get to that point and start what you're supposed to deliver at that point. Then I move on to the next point. So even if there are people who want to ask you questions related to that particular point that you're talking about, you can answer them right then and there because it's sort of closed. it's like a box at that point where you answer anything and everything to do about that topic right then and there. If somebody just takes your attention to the earlier topic that you reached, you can very well handle it from there. But I actually prefer just taking my step back to my earlier location. It makes a world of difference to my mindset. So I just feel, okay, you know what, I'm in the middle of that topic again, and it comes naturally to you. Okay, you know what, he's talking about this, let me answer this, and then gingerly move on to the next point. So similarly, move on to the next point. And usually, before you move on to pretty serious topics, it's always useful to have a fact or a reference that is available there to keep the audience engaged. This could be the real life cases that you're talking about, or a quote that you could want to do it. Sort of a mini break and letting them assimilate the ideas that were discussed in points 2 and 3. Then you go ahead, sort of helps them also assimilate the ideas discussed in points 2 and 3. Then you go ahead, present your final major idea. You know, that kind of an idea that really stumps them. Oh, wow, this is one more hard hitting idea or the concept, which is truly good to know. You deliberate on it, you explain that pretty well. See, now you are not under the pressure of forgetting anything, because mentally you have made up your mind. You know what, when I'm going to get to that point, that's when I'm going to discuss that particular idea. You're not going to be thinking of, okay, what will I speak at point 5 when you're standing at point 2. Trust me, you practice this once or twice, it'll come naturally to you. You just bucket your whole presentation into ideas, mark a bucket against each point or position, and then just flow. So that's about the next idea. And then finally, you come to a point where you sort of summarize the whole thing. You can prefer to come back to your origin location where you started from, where you did the introduction, or perhaps you still want to keep a new location there. You can take ideas, you can take questions, any comments, any feedback, and just discuss or summarize the whole thing at will. So this is something that has truly helped me in my speeches or my presentations of late, and you don't even have to glance at what's going on your slides. You exactly know what is there on the slide. And slides, they are not for reading, they are just for guiding your presentation along in a beautiful manner. Now somebody asked me, okay, Bharat, now with the pandemic around, like most of my sessions are online, so how can I use the same approach to delivering an amazing online presentation? Well, it's simple. You don't have to move around in the room. If you want to do that, you can still do that in your own presentation room. You can just move around in your home. There's something similar. While you're sitting, just choose 4 or 5 objects. It could be maybe a couple of pens that you got, your favorite toy, a pen stand, anything that you feel is on your table, and assign them a group of topics. And if you want, you can just play around with your hand. Just move them one by one out of the scene or bring them to the screen. You can even use your chess pieces to represent the points and just use them and keep them aside once their role is done. Hope this tip was useful. Just try it out for a couple of your presentations. You'll enjoy that process more. All the best. Thank you.